What happened?
Yes.
What? Ready. Good evening, everyone. I would like to welcome you to our July 2nd, 2024 Board of Education meeting. We are calling the meeting to order. It is 7:06 PM, and if everyone could please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. A reading of meeting notice. The New Jersey Open Public Meetings Law was enacted to ensure the right of the public to have advance notice of and to attend the meetings of the public bodies at which any business affecting their interest is discussed or acted upon. In accordance with the provision of the Act, the Verona Board of Education has caused notice of this meeting to be published in the Star Ledger, posted with the Township of Verona and the Verona Education Association. Postings of this meeting setting forth the time, location, and agenda were posted at the Verona Board of Education office and on the Verona Public Schools District website. Copies of tonight's agenda and resolutions have been made available to the public via the Board of Education website. Mr. Cruz, can you please call attendance?
Mr. Walker,
Yes.
Mrs. Frizella,
Here.
Mrs. Farrar,
Here.
Mrs. Prisco,
Here.
Mr. Boone.
Here.
We have quorum. Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to the agenda, I need a motion, please, to approve our routine matters, approve our minutes from our last meeting of June 11th. Motion by Mr. Waka, seconded by
I'll second.
Mr. Boone.
Uh,
Are there any discussions? Mr. Cruz, if you could please call roll.
Mr. Walker,
Yes.
Mrs. Frizella,
Yes.
Mrs. Farrar,
Present, so I'll recuse myself.
that's good. Yep. And Mrs. Prisco,
Yes,
Mr. Boone.
Yes.
thank you.
Motion carries. Thank you.
Moving on to our superintendent report, Ms. Diane DiGiuseppe.
Good evening. We did receive in today's email the preliminary NJSLA results. There were a few areas that we exceeded expectations for improvement and some that need to better meet that mark. I can't go into specifics now because they're still considered embargoed. As soon as the Department of Education gives us the okay to release them in the public, I'll provide a full report on those that pertain to the school goals, and Dr. Miller will obviously do his thing when it comes to the assessment report. The education committee members will be happy to hear, especially those that were on the committee last year, that we'll be using the Atlas curriculum management platform to record lesson plans. And our goal is that what this platform can do is it can, because teachers don't type in a standard, they choose a standard. So the standard is identified in the curriculum, it's identified in the lesson plans. And then what we can do is we can upload assessment results that are also linked to standards, and we can triangulate that data. Obviously, in the first year, you don't have enough data to triangulate, but ultimately going down the road, we'll be able to triangulate assessment data, lesson plan data, and a curriculum data to look for patterns. I mean, ultimately, what we want to do is to be able to guide our growth and improvement efforts more strategically. Right. So rather now, because we don't have a lot of data about why we're not doing as well as we think we should, we're taking rough guesses and making changes to address those lower areas where the test scores are lower than we would like. So that is going to help us be much more strategic in our planning for school improvement. With regard to the schedule changes that we started with last year at HBW, we did make a small schedule change for next year in the 5th grade language arts schedule. So students will be getting an additional marking period research, which is going to address the time differential that we don't have in our fifth grade that most fifth grades that occur in an elementary building do get. So the state recommends 90 minutes of ELA and 60 minutes of math. We get 45 and 45 at HBW. So we are looking to find ways, and ultimately for the 25-26 school year, we'll have a brand new schedule. But getting that schedule up and running required a little bit more professional development than we were ready to rush into for the 24-25 school year. So I will put something together and send out to the HBW parents that may not be paying, watching tonight or going back and watching this video. So we are well into what I call the summer teacher shuffle. So right now, we have teachers that are actively being recruited from other districts. So you see there's several resignations on the agenda this evening. And so we are now responding to those resignations and moving to fill those positions as quickly as possible. So right now, open positions are at, still open, but about to be closed. We have a grade 4 position at Brookdale Avenue School. And just to go over why that's a grade 4 position, if you recall on the last agenda, we had a change that several agendas ago, the math coach position was reduced. So Mrs. Gisario was going to grade 4 at Brookdale Avenue. With the resignation of Ms. Guger on the agenda this evening, we have an opening at grade 5 math, and that would be a perfect slot for Mrs. Gisario to fill in. So she'll be transferring, it's also on the agenda tonight, into grade 5 math at HBW, and that opens that position at grade 4. We do have, we are in the final round of interviews and had a nice group of candidates to choose from. At the middle school, we just talked about the 5th grade math, which is filled internally. You'll notice on the agenda this evening, Ms. Sulo is resigning to go to another area closer to home. She's a special education teacher. We are advertising. That was a recent resignation letter. And we have Ms. Senora Lopez's resignation that was approved last month. And that was for Spanish at HBW. And we have a final, I'm interviewing someone tomorrow, final. At the high school, we have several openings. I did hire, he's on the agenda tonight for your approval, a special education social studies teacher for Mr. Wenzel's resignation. We are still seeking special education English for Ms. Boldarian's resignation. We have a Spanish lead replacement that's been exceedingly hard to find, as it's a half-year placement. But I spoke to Mrs. Peter this morning, and she believes she can cover that from September through January with 6-period assignments. And we have Mr. Cross's resignation from the business department, and we just advertised and we're actively interviewing. They had 5 candidates they were reaching out to today. With regard to the high impact tutoring that we spoke about last meeting, I mentioned to the board that we were not sure at that time whether or not we were going to have the attendance during the summer months that we had hoped. So we decided to prioritize the funds for the fall when student attendance would be stronger. We are running a multisensory reading program this summer for students who have multisensory reading, and for those that multisensory reading, it's like Orton Gillingham, Wilson. Those are the programs that are considered multisensory that have that in their IEPs and who need that level of support. The high impact tutoring was well attended in the spring, and we hope to see that same attendance in the fall. I can't talk about this topic without saying it was a shame that the state delayed the grant funding for so long. It impacted the number of students who could have benefited from it. And I'm referring specifically to our 4th grade students who aged out as of June 30th, 2024, and are not available for full high impact tutoring. Going back and looking at who was impacted by the pandemic, we know that all of our students were impacted by the pandemic. But if you look at the rising 5th graders, this year's 4th graders that are going into 5th grade were in kindergarten during the closure. So they missed, they were not in school from March to June of 2019-20 of that school year. They also came back to first grade in a hybrid environment. In second grade, they were at least in school 5 days, but it was in a masked environment through March. And then in things got back to normal, but when you spent kindergarten with a good quarter of the year at home, a hybrid year on first grade, and a difficult year trying to learn in a mask situation in your second grade year, it's hard, even though you're back to normalcy, to recoup those numeracy and literacy skills that you acquire in early primary education. So our third and fourth graders are the ones that probably needed the most intervention with what this grant was designed to do. And it's unfortunate and negligent, I believe, of the department not to get the grants to the schools in a more expedient manner, or to extend that we can continue this working with these kids into the 5th grade. They did neither. So that's really unfortunate. Our other summer programs are off to a good start. We had, the opening of VC, and our ESY program is also running nicely. We, Verona Summer Music is is up and running at the high school, and I know I won't be here to see the actual performance of Willy Wonka, but Mr. Morden did tell me I could come down and watch the final dress rehearsal. Yeah. So, yeah, I'm sure he will. Yeah. That's my report for this evening. Thank you.
Thank you very much for all that information. Does anyone have any questions?
Yeah, so the question was, is Mr. Morton going to be involved in summer music going forward? I met with him the last week of school, and all indications are yes, and it will continue to be at the high school.
It's, just speaking historically, one of my favorite programs that Verona has to offer.
Mhm.
And I'm heartened.
Yeah.
I just assumed that he was going to be stepping down from that role.
Well, and also important to note that it's not a Verona program. It's a Mr. Morton program. It's Verona Summer Music, but it's not school district supported. We support it, but it's supported by the parents. They pay
Mhm.
for it. Thank you.
Great. Anyone else have any questions or comments? Thank you. Moving on to our committee reports. There were no committee reports, so we're moving on to public comments on action items only. Anyone from the public that has anything to comment on that we're voting on, please come up to the podium. Seeing none. Moving on to discussion items, new business and old business. Does anyone have?
So I was hoping to be able to kind of discuss this first at our security committee. But unfortunately, we weren't able to meet, mostly because of my own personal things that I had. So I had to unfortunately cancel 2 of our meetings. But I wanted to just kind of bring up and see how we could potentially get the ball rolling on a conversation around security. Whether it be, I'll be honest, I'm not really a big proponent of consulting firms. I think they're very expensive and they don't necessarily, provide, as much as what we may be looking for. But, I think that I would like to kind of have some ideas of what that may cost if we were thinking to bring someone in to, do a plethora of things, to just kind of view our buildings, meet with our teachers, our administrators. I'm not sure exactly what a consultant firm would do, but I would like to know what our options are for that. And then also if it's something that we would possibly need an RFP for. Again, I don't really know exactly what the process looks like, but I would like to start to investigate and have an idea and have discussions around what that looks like for us and what are viable options for us.
Mrs. Ferrara, if I might, when you're asking potential for consulting firms, are you looking at the physical plant, or are you looking at process, or are you looking at both?
Both. I think that, we should, I'd like to see us have options on the table so that as a board, we can look at what they are. Again, what are viable options? What are things that we possibly, where are our weaknesses in district? What are our options for kind of trying to fill those holes?
For a physical evaluation, could we, or I believe we have, could we partner with the town in the police department in helping us on the physical part? I mean, do they not have?
We
people-
have, yeah, and
Yes.
we've also invited the State Department of Homeland Security that partners with the Department of Ed. So you have a joint a department at the DOE that's also functions with the Homeland Security, and they've come in and worked with our staff. That my first year we did that.
So then maybe, I think I want to know, what do we need and how much is that going to cost?
Yeah, I can get
Right?
to some
So I
prices.
think just that in itself is a place kind of for us to start.
Start.
Thank you very much. I agree. We should start looking into that and getting some numbers. I didn't do this last meeting. I don't think I did, but I just want to say thank you to end of the year. Thank yous. I don't know if I did, but I want to
You
just
did.
say thank you to everyone and the staff.
You did, I think.
So I'm thanking you again for everything. So, and enjoy the summer. So I don't remember if I did it the last meeting. 'Cause I'm getting old. I don't remember stuff. But I also want to give a shout out to, he wasn't a Verona High School graduate, but he was a product of our Verona schools. And his parents were born, raised here and went through Verona schools as well. His dad actually threw out the first pitch this year for the Verona High School baseball game. And that's David Festa. He played his first Major League Baseball game for the Minnesota Twins. And I'm going to get choked up because I've known him since he was born. And just to see him and watch him, we had a watch party for him at the Verona Inn, and he's pitching again tomorrow evening. He's starting. So I just would like to really give a big shout out to his parents for doing such an amazing job. He attended Forest Avenue and HBW, and then he went to Seton Hall High School and ultimately went to Seton Hall University. And he was actually a walk-on there. And he was 13th ranked in the MLB draft. So congratulations. He's just a great person. He's humble. His parents are humble. So I wish him all the best and congratulations to them. So
He
that's
didn't
all I
start
have.
Pitching until late in his.
Right,
career,
late,
correct?
yes. He pitched on Barnstormers when he was younger, but
Yeah.
he was really a shortstop. So, but congratulations to all of them. And that's all I really have. Right. So moving on to correspondence. Is there any correspondence we need to report out on? Nothing? Okay, so I'm going to move on to our resolutions. I need a motion, please, to approve our personnel resolutions A1 through A8.
Moved.
Motion by Mr. Waka, seconded by
So moved.
Mrs. Pereira. Are there any discussions on personnel resolutions?
I just had one question on A1 point, A1.1. Are some of these, the part-time technician role, is that that's typically filled by a existing student? Is that just by practice?
So on A11, the district technician, network technician, that's not a student. Yes, we do use
That's the
students.
part-time.
No, this is a full-time position
Okay.
and that
Oh.
replaces, what am I,
No, I'm
oh,
looking-
I see it
Yeah, I'm
below.
looking at the one at the bottom on A11. And I have
And
no,
that is, yes, it's a student.
okay,
yeah.
yeah, no, I have no problem with it. Again, I just applaud that. I think it's a neat opportunity for a learning opportunity for our students, and that's why,
Very
that's
much
why I
so.
wanted to call that out.
Yes, thank you for that. I'm sorry. I was looking at the network technician.
Yeah, that's
Excuse
what I
me.
was looking
Yes,
for.
I-
2
Thank
clicks
you. I
above.
was
Yeah.
looking to- Thank you. Mr. Cruz, if you could please call roll.
Sure. Mr. Walker,
Yes.
Mrs. Frizella,
Yes.
Mrs. Farrar,
Yes.
Mrs. Prisco,
Yes,
Mr. Boone.
Yes,
Motion carries.
thank you. Moving on to our education resolutions, I need a motion, please, to approve resolutions B1 through B17.
so moved.
Motion by Mr. Boone, seconded by
Second.
Mrs. Brazella. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, Mr. Cruz, if you could please call roll.
Mr. Walker,
Yes.
Mrs. Frizella, Mrs. Farrar,
Yes.
Mrs. Prisco,
Yes,
Mr. Boone.
Yes,
Motion carries.
thank you. Moving on to our athletics and co-curricular, I need a motion, please, to approve resolutions C1 through C2.
Moved.
Motion by Ms. Brazella, seconded by
second.
Mr. Boone. Are there any discussions? Mr. Cruz, if you could please call roll.
Mr. Walker,
Yes.
Mrs. Rosella,
Yes.
Mrs. Farrar,
Yes.
Mrs. Prisco,
Yes.
Mr. Boone.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Moving on to our facilities resolutions, I need a resolution, a motion, please, to approve resolutions D1. Motion by
I'll move it.
Mrs. Brazella, seconded by
I'll second.
Mrs. Ferrara. Are there any discussions? Mr. Cruz, if you could please,
Hold on. Sorry. This is for C.
D, we're on facilities.
Okay.
The train.
Yeah. Okay.
Mr. Cruz, if you could please call
Yeah.
roll.
Mr. Walker,
Yeah.
Mrs. Rosella,
Yes.
Mrs. Farrar,
Yes.
Mrs. Prisco,
Yes.
Mr. Boone.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Moving on to our finance resolutions, please. I need a motion, please, to approve resolutions E1 through E12.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Boone, seconded by
I'll second it.
Mrs. Rosella. Are there any discussions? Seeing none,
I did
Oh.
just want to thank on E12, I do want to thank the
donation.
Sushmit
Yes,
family for their generous donation to FNB.
yes, I just saw that. Oh, sorry to hear that. Thank you for bringing
And
that up.
it's just so, they're planning on buying AEDs with this.
Oh,
Thank you.
I'm sorry, buying.
AEDs?
Oh,
EDs. Mr. Cruz, if you could please call.
I have a question.
Sure.
E11, it says we're getting 250 Chromebooks for staff. But the cost is not to exceed 198,000. That's pretty expensive for a Chromebook, right?
So these are staff Chromebook, not the actual basic small Chromebook. So this is actually I
Do
believe
we,
it's
we
15
expect to
inch.
use that whole amount? Because that would be like almost, how much for 1,000 in Chromebook or maybe even more?
So that is
800 a Chromebook.
yeah, it's about eight and change, and then it's also like the support and the warranty for I believe 5 years if I'm not mistaken. But that's proposal that the IT director was working
So
on.
it's a better model. Is that where?
It's a better model, and it's part of transitioning our staff away from Windows devices to Chrome iOS OS devices.
I think the last time they got devices was during the pandemic, right?
Yeah,
and they were-
2020, I think it was the last, and they're due to replace those models.
All right, that makes more sense. Thank you.
Do we get anything for retiring the older stuff, or is that?
So there, whenever we do, before disposing any hardware, we do actually auction it off. So we'll probably do like gov deals or even a vendor that does the buyback. So there is, I'm not sure what the value is, but there is actually a return on that.
And then, I mean, so is there a way to then square that accounting so that that 198 doesn't feel as bad, or is that not?
So as far as like to cover the breakage on the difference of that, so we can, but I think that the value that we get from reselling those devices back is not that big. Yeah, it's not.
but the funds would go like into like the general budget fund or
Oh,
Yeah, yeah,
yes, so that
so it would
it
kind of
does
offset
end
itself.
exactly. So it ends up being a revenue. It ends up coming back into the budget as a revenue, and it does offset the budget in the future year.
Mr. Cruz, if you could please call roll on that. For
Mr. Walker,
Yeah.
Mrs. Rosella,
Yes.
Mrs. Farrar,
Yes.
Mrs. Prisco,
yes,
Mr. Boone.
Yes.
Motion carries.
thank you. Moving on to governance and policy, I need a motion, please, to approve resolutions F1 through F2.
Motion.
Motion by Mr. Waka, seconded by
I'll second.
Mr. Boone. Are there any discussions? Seeing none, Mr. Cruz, if you could please call roll.
Mr. Walker,
Yes.
Mrs. Rosella,
Yes.
Mrs. Farrar,
So again, I wasn't here for the June meeting, so I'm gonna recuse myself.
Mrs. Prisco,
Yes.
Mr. Boone,
Yes.
motion carries.
Thank you very much. Moving on to our public participation. Anyone from the public wishing to speak on any matter, please approach the podium. Once recognized, clearly state your first and last name for the record. You will have 3 minutes to address the board. There will be no cross dialogue during the public portion. If there is a question that can be answered, only the superintendent, board attorney, or board president can respond, and will do so at the end of all comments. You will be granted 1 time to speak, and there is a total time limit of 1 hour for public participation. Again, please note there will be no back and forth, and we request that you remain respectful. Thank you. Anyone coming up to the podium, please come up and state your name.
I'm in the FM Brown section of town. And
Can you
I'll
state
give-
your name? Okay.
I'll state my name at
Okay.
the end of the meeting.
Okay.
Not one person who has read the medical records, the emails, the documents, or learned the facts has been able to say the allegations by a former FM Brown student of sexual assault by another student are not true. With even a fraction of the evidence this board has, and I tell you it is a fraction, neither can you. Yet you sit in silence, focused on avoiding liability rather than acknowledging a traumatized child, in turn allowing that child to continue to go through hell every single day. Not one day goes by that this does not come up. The trauma to a child is the same, whether the harm's caused by a child or an adult. Just yesterday, she had to run from the pool because this boy abruptly showed up. In Discovery, you will eventually hear her own brave words from her mouth in a video from trauma therapy where she was finally brave enough to share what happened to her, and I'll spare you those details right now. She is incredibly brave for speaking up when so many are too scared to speak. Yet you have allowed members of this community to victim shame and try to squash that bravery. You've allowed adults to call this brave victim a liar, crazy, blame her parents who have done everything and gone to the ends of the earth to get her the help she needs so she is safe. Another educator has been here and yelled, if you feel scared, close your mouth and leave. You are telling a child, don't be brave enough to say the truth. You enable the family of this child to not do the right thing either. This is why victims are too scared to speak up. They are the ones who need to prove their innocence and be vindicated against attackers. Kids do not lie about sexual assault. No one, let alone a child, could fake physical injuries, triggers, well-documented symptoms of trauma, documented by educators and nurses at this school for a year and a half, to only later be able to come up with a fully supported story. How could a child know the symptoms of trauma to fake when our educators do not? She told her teacher flat out, a child touched her. That teacher told the parent, and she chose not to believe her because she didn't know what trauma looked like. And why would a child lie? She's lost friends, her school, her innocence, her trusting and carefree spirit. Thankfully, she has not lost her strength and she has not lost her resilience, especially against this utter failure of support from the community that swears that they stand strong with their community. The truth will come out. I promise you that. That is why we are here, with the support of trauma doctors who say long-term healing requires the truth. You don't need to believe her. The emails, her injuries, the notes, the records from this school, from her
Thank you. Your
doctor.
3 minutes are up. Thank you.
What would you do if this little girl came up to you and said, why didn't you help her? What would you tell her when she said, why didn't you
Thank
speak
you.
up?
Thank you. Your comments. Didn't state your name. You're not going to state your name. Okay. Thank you. Yeah, I'll say it. I'm not sure. We have not spoken about anything regarding this case. We are not able to speak about anything about this case. We have not referred to anyone of any child. And for the record, the first meeting, when people came out and spoke, we had to stop people from calling another person a predator. So it's going both sides. So let's just stop. Is there anyone else that would like to come up to the podium?
Arzu Kaufman. I've spoken here before. I have 3 kids at F.M. Brown. Again, I didn't feel like I was going to speak today because the person who just spoke is extremely close to this case, as some of you know. So, but what got me up here was your comment right now. It goes both ways. It goes both ways. Yes, showing respect goes both ways. So you stopped someone from saying those words. That was presented at the first meeting. That person, yes, could have used different words, but was also, some of you know who that person was. So he had every right to do that. But again, probably should have acted differently. But as mentioned last time, when somebody gets up and stares the people who spoke down and says, leave, go ahead, leave. If you don't like it here, leave. Or somebody gets up and actually calls kids liars. Why aren't you then saying, stop it? Why are you just saying stop it to somebody who used a harsh word? Why don't you stop and say, stop calling this girl a liar? Why are you just going one way? Why are you advocating for the person that you referred as your friend after what he stated? If I were any of you, I wouldn't want to be associated with that person that made such an asinine comment without knowing anything. So I agree, it should go both ways. But again, your actions are not showing any support to anybody. So don't go saying that the person used wrong language. I agree. But when other people do it to some little girl who came out of bravery to say what happened to her, and you don't stop them from calling her a liar and saying that parents do things for other reasons like money and making all these ridiculous accusations.
Say any of that. I have to stop you right now.
No,
We did
you
not say
didn't.
any of that.
You
You're
did not.
making the assumptions sound like we said stuff
No,
like
you
that. So
didn't.
please stop.
No, I'm not saying you said it.
You
None of
came-
you said that. I'm telling you right now, none of you said that. But when somebody comes up here and says something like that, why are you not telling them to stop?
Reality is we shouldn't ever, we can't. It's a right, a freedom, right, it's a public meeting.
Okay.
People can say what they want, except they can't yell fire in a crowded room.
So why did you stop? You said
I
the
did
person.
not.
No. So why was he stopped from saying the one word? I'm just saying, if you're stopping one person from using harsh language, then you should say to other people to be respectful as well. That's all I'm saying, is have everybody be respectful.
you. And I'm going to also comment because there were things mentioned at our first meeting that were against our superintendent, that were very disrespectful, very upsetting to everyone that sits up here. But that's acceptable? It's not acceptable.
One quick comment. This is public meeting. And some of you know, I do attend a lot of these in my job. And as part of public meetings, the public gets to communicate with us, with their elected representatives. It's not intended as a back and forth engagement between two sides of an argument. It's not intended as a back and forth engagement between the board and the public. Anyone can say pretty much anything they want at a public meeting. As Ms. DiGiuseppe has mentioned, I personally have had people stand up there and call me racist, call me horrible names, before I was even a member of the board, to be quite honest. And And there was nothing any member of the board could say, because that is that person's right. Goes back to the First Amendment. So while yes, we do ask people to be respectful and to recognize, one, that what you say is being recorded. It can be played back and spliced and diced in however many ways they could do it. My kids could probably do it. And two, we are members, everybody in this room is members of your community. And we're all going to be here for a very long time together. And so let's bring it down a bit. I am happy. I take notes. I try to pay attention to everything that's going on. But let's just remember, it's public comment. People can say whatever they want. We have limits to what we can say. In fact, I'm sure Kyle would be yelling at me right about now. But that's really the reality. Thanks.
Thank you.
Hi, my name's Joy. I live on Zorell Street. I just want to say I find it interesting that you guys are making comments now because I thought at the end of everybody's comments is only when you can speak, but
Right.
you're obviously not sticking to your rules. But anyways, I just wanted to say I find it, and please don't interrupt me. Just want to say I find it really interesting that both the teachers and your jobs and your responsibilities and all these folks here, their sole responsibility is to protect the children. Who knows if that happened? Who knows if that didn't happen? This investigation is ongoing. Court of public opinion has already been a disaster. We've got people siding with other people, people siding with other people, but the evidence will come out. And when it does come out, I can't wait for it to. It's going to be great because those who, excuse me, I'm speaking. You don't have to listen to me. I'll wait till you're done. Okay. So when it does come out, I hope the board does acknowledge and will put to bed any sort of negative comments about this case going forward. And that we'll just wait for it to happen. And in the meantime, it is what it is. And lastly, I just want to say, teachers that are here to support one another, I hope it's for reasons outside of this case and not related to this case, because if that's the case here, that's truly embarrassing and disrespectful. Thanks.
Thank you, Joy, for your comments.
Hi, Megan Pellegrino. You may want to stay for this.
No, I don't need.
Okay, you can watch it on YouTube then. Okay, good. I am co-president of the Verona Education Association. And I wasn't planning on speaking either, but that last comment triggered me because we are educators. We protect, we teach. I'm speaking to everyone. I'm speaking to my colleagues as well. Many of us also live in the community. I am a parent of FM Brown. My son just graduated. I've also been a teacher at FM Brown for 26 years, going on 27. We are there to protect and to teach students. When our school is consistently brought up, because allegations, they are allegations, they have not gone to a court case yet, but our school is consistently brought up. And tonight, the teachers are being brought up. And we can come to meetings because our school is being brought up every single meeting. So if we come here and sit in solidarity and don't say anything, we have that right. We go into this profession to protect, to teach young children. I've been doing it now for 26 years. We care deeply about our community, about the kids in our school. So yes, one of our colleagues, our principal, and our entire school has been brought up. So we can come here and sit in solidarity.
Pellegrino, I never restarted the clock. That was from you. Okay. Thank you for coming out, speaking. Is there anybody else that would like to come up and speak? Seeing none. Have a look at the thing. Sorry about that. Okay, we're going to. Sorry, I'm coming at the end. I need a motion to approve, to adjourn our meeting.
So
Right. Motion by Mr. Boone, seconded by
I got it.
Ms. Rosella. Our next Board of Ed meeting will be Tuesday, July 20. All in favor?
I.
Aye, sorry. Aye. And our next Board of Education meeting will be on Tuesday, July 23rd, 2024, confidential at 6 p.m. and 7 p.m. is our public session. Our meeting is adjourned. It is now 7:46 p.m. and everyone enjoy the rest of the summer. Thank you.